All right, so what is TDD? Well, TDD stands for test-driven development, and at the surface is a pretty simple concept. Essentially, when practicing test-driven development, you write failing tests first, and then write your code to solve the problem which makes the test pass. There are a number of benefits to TDD, all related to the idea that tests are written ahead of time. When you practice TDD as a development methodology, it forces you to focus on individual features until they are complete. Because your test describes very specific scenarios, you will continue to fail until you solve them. It can also make your code easier to refactor and maintain because it's written in a modular way where each feature has code and a related set of tests indicating if it still provides the intended functionality. TDD also naturally produces well-documented features because each feature of the codebase has tests written with well-explained scenarios. Proponents of the TDD methodology argue that it reduces the cost of a project over time because it reduces the number of defects introduced into the project as time goes on. Again, because there is naturally a large set of tests already in place which cover all of the application's specific logic and business use cases. Now, while all of these upsides are true, there is definitely another side to this coin. While TDD can reduce the cost of a project's maintenance over time, it most certainly slows down a project in the beginning. If you're starting from scratch on a project, it can be very time-consuming to write failing tests for all of the basic boilerplate scenarios and will definitely slow things down. But practicing the TDD methodology from the very beginning of a project is essentially required if you really want to truly follow it. You can start with an already written code base, but this would only provide tests and documentation for bugs and enhancements, which would definitely reduce the overall effectiveness of the entire process. So as you can see, this is a bit of a catch-22. You're either starting from the very beginning of the development process with a TDD approach where it takes longer but you get the long-term benefits, or it may not actually be worth doing at all. So let's discuss instead the TDD mindset versus the TDD methodology. Now, everything I've talked about until now is really describing the test-driven development methodology, which is definitely something you or an entire team would have to commit to for a very long time. But that doesn't mean you can't use the idea of TDD in your day-to-day code, especially when fixing bugs. I personally really like the idea of writing failing tests that describe a defect in an application, then writing the code that fixes the defect. This is not really going all in with the whole TDD thing, but it does ensure that you have truly fixed an issue as described and will ensure that the specific issue will never happen again because there's a test for it. Finally, if you think that the entire TDD methodology makes sense, be prepared to have to sell the idea to the stakeholders in the beginning of the project. Setting proper timeline expectations is absolutely key for a successful TDD-based approach. Stakeholders who don't truly understand the long-term benefits may not support the process because of the time it takes in the beginning. But that's all I have on TDD for today. Until next time, happy coding.